All right, and welcome back inside the law, everyone. I'm your host, Philip Holloway. And listen, I said that I would come in and do a live stream once the defense case really got underway in the Donald Trump trial that's currently underway in Manhattan. And today it has gotten underway in a big way. You know, when we last spoke about this, the speculation was, what would the defense do? Would Donald Trump testify? Would Donald Trump call witnesses? Paul Morrow, former NYPD inspector and Fox News contributor, friend of the show, he was on several days ago, and we were talking about what may come, and he and I together, if you remember, we speculated that we might hear from this guy named Bob Costello. Now, Bob Costello is a lawyer. He's been in and around Manhattan and New York courts for a long, long time. I think he said he was practicing for like 51 years. But at one point in time, the star witness for the prosecutor, Michael Cohen, had reached out to Costello because Costello, he was looking for a way out. He was looking for a way out of the legal troubles that he found himself in. And look, Michael Cohen's legal troubles are legend. And it's far and it's wide and it's broad and it's way, way, way beyond anything arguably related to Donald Trump. He got himself into a lot of hot water for a number of things. And of course, he's now convicted and disbarred. So he never apparently hires Bob Costello he never pays a retainer. But here's the thing. And this is why inside the law, we use these cases that are in the news to learn about the real legal system. And so one of the realities that I can share with you is that if you go to a lawyer seeking advice, even if you don't hire that lawyer, you have a conversation with that lawyer. Perhaps, you're interviewing the attorney, thinking about hiring the lawyer. The things that you say to that lawyer are covered by the attorney-client privilege. In other words, whether money ever changes hands, whether retainer agreements are ever signed, the conversation is privileged. It's covered by the attorney-client protections so that you can speak freely to the attorney. And so the attorney can ask you questions that otherwise, you might not want to answer if the attorney were not bound to that degree of privacy. And the reason that it's set up that way is so that lawyer and potential client can make informed decisions about one another. And so it also encourages people to be truthful to their attorney. You don't want to lie to your attorney because your attorney can't help you unless you tell the truth. All right. So nevertheless, as I understand it, no money changed hands, but eventually Michael Cohen released Costello from the attorney-client privilege. And there's nobody better to explain it than Costello himself. So what I'm going to do is, the other day when I was headed to the airport, I was down in Florida to meet up with our good friends, Viva Fry, and of course, Eric and Mark from America's Untold Stories. I was listening to the news and this interview came on, and I literally had to pull my vehicle over to stop and pay close attention to it. So this is what he said to my friends at America's Newsroom at Fox News. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this video to the stage. We'll hear him talk about it, and I'll pause it, and we're gonna analyze the information that he's sharing, and we're gonna just break it down and talk about what it means. So let's go ahead and get this underway, and let's see what Costello has to say, because what he's saying here in this clip is what essentially what his testimony would be. But he says some other things that probably won't come out in court, and I want to make sure we talk about those nuggets as well. And by the way, for 584 people here, welcome. We're glad to see you. I see the chat is hopping too. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being in the chat. Make sure if you have a question, preface it with the word question so that if I see it, I'll know that it's a question that we can get into. All right, here we go. Let's see what's
Michael Cohen. His name is Robert Costello. He represented Cohen at the start of the federal investigation and has been released from his attorney-client confidentiality agreement, hence the reason why you're able to talk to us. And, sir, thank you for your time today. And we watched you before Congress yesterday, and that was something else. This is part of what you had said to Congress yesterday. You said, Cohen told you, I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything on Donald Trump. Now, you testified before Alvin Bragg's grand jury.
all right. I want to make a comment about that. So he says, quote, I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything on Donald Trump. This is in the context of this attorney-client conversation where you know it's a privileged conversation. At that time, even Cohen was a lawyer. He knew it was privileged. He's got no reason to lie. And so, the conversation with Costello has more what we call indicia of being truthful. In other words, he's got every reason to be truthful with Bob Costello when he says, I've got nothing on Trump. All right, here we go.
Did you tell them what you told Congress yesterday?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because before I testified on a Monday before the grand jury, I gave Alvin Bragg's assistant DAs the courtesy of about an hour and a half Zoom conference where I told them all of the exculpatory material that I had that they were supposed to put before the grand jury.
All right. So exculpatory material, for those who may not know, exculpatory material, sometimes we in the business call that Brady material. It's out of a Supreme Court case named Brady. It's material that it points away from guilt and it points to the innocence of the suspect or the person accused. And it's really valuable stuff, particularly if you wind up getting accused. Prosecutors have a constitutional obligation to turn that over to criminal defendants and their attorneys. They have to turn over the exculpatory or Brady material. And what you have here is you've got this attorney who's telling you that before he knew he was going to be testifying before the grand jury, he met with Alvin Bragg's prosecutors prior to his grand jury testimony, and he gave them, hand-fed them exculpatory material. All right. And so with that in mind, let's listen to the rest of it. Or, well, at least till we break again.
But when I appeared before the grand jury, they were asking me questions that, in my opinion, and I've been a federal prosecutor myself, I was deputy chief of the criminal division in the Southern District of New York. Those questions they were asking me were not going to elicit the exculpatory information that I had. So I began to expand upon my answers, and the DA's office was trying to shut me down.
You catch that? He was trying to make sure the grand jury got the exculpatory. The prosecutors were going out of their way, according to him, to ask their questions in the grand jury in a way that the exculpatory aspects of this never saw the light of day. So right out of the gate, before there's even an indictment, the prosecutors, according to Costello, he was there. They were trying to rig the system, I guess, against Trump. This is how you get Trump. The old saying, a prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich. Well, this is what they're talking about.
Saying that I had finished my answer. And I told them that when I'm in the middle of answering a question, I'll decide when I finish my answer. And I asked them not to interrupt me again. But basically, they only put in a small cherry-picked group of emails. I presented maybe 200 to 300 emails and text messages to them. I had them with me, luckily, in chronological order. They put 2 or 3 into evidence. I asked them, are you going to put the rest of them into evidence?
So he shows up. He literally brings receipts. He's got emails and documents. And the prosecutors, according to him, now they're cherry picking what the grand jury gets to see. If you're ever on a grand jury, and you may have been on a grand jury, but if you're ever in a grand and you want to know something, you have the right, by the way, to tell the prosecutor, I want more information. Bring me this information. Answer this question for me. And if you just sit on your hands and you're quiet, you only get what they feed to you. You don't get the whole thing. And most people don't understand that. But the DA and prosecutors, they drive the grand jury train 100%. But here you've got this lawyer on here, and he's doing his best to make sure the grand jury gets at least some of the rest of the story in the context.
And they said no. And I said, remember, there's a court reporter there. I said, why not? They said, there's a legal issue with him. I said, what's the legal issue? And he said, hearsay.
Nope.
Now, first of all, hearsay is admissible in the grand jury, so that's really not an objection. But I played along with him, and I said, hearsay? Well, then pay close attention to the next two sentences. I said, these documents were made in the regular course of business, and it was the regular course of business to make and maintain documents such as these at or about the dates indicated. I said, now you know, and I know, but the grand jurors don't know, that makes these documents business records. And you know, and I know, but the grand jurors don't know that business records are an exception to the hearsay rule. So are you going to put the rest of the documents into evidence? And they indicated most likely no. So I simply said to the grand jurors, I said, you people should demand these documents. You should demand to see everything in chronological order so you get a real view of what Michael Cohen was like in those days at that moment in time. I said, and then ask yourself this question. Why are they trying to keep these documents from me? Well, after that, I left the grand jury. I have no idea whether they put the documents into evidence or what happened, but subsequently, Donald Trump was indicted. And you've seen the fruits of that indictment in this trial, which is a trial about something that's not a crime. When I met with Michael Cohen on the first day at the Regency Hotel when he was suicidal by his own admission, I explained to him not.
So there was something about, let's see, I got a note here from some insiders up there. Apparently something about Cohen was on the roof of the hotel, potentially was, saying he was going to be maybe trying to kill himself, jump off. And then I guess there was some testimony today in court. Cohen was on the roof of the Regency Hotel. He was going to jump off and kill himself because he couldn't handle the pressure from the ongoing investigation. And the prosecutor asks if Costello told the grand jury that Cohen was acting like a drama queen. Costello didn't know because he didn't know if Cohen was sincere. And apparently, so this came up in court today.
Disclosure agreements, NDAs as he was calling them, I said are perfectly legal because he kept on saying, why are they trying to put me in jail for an NDA? And I explained to him, that's not why they're trying to put you in jail. Obviously, they think you've done other things. What are they? He denied having done anything else. I didn't do anything illegal. I'm cooperating with the special counsel. I'm cooperating with Congress. Of course, he forgot to tell us that he lied to Congress. But he was desperately seeking, according to his own words, an escape route. I want you guys to tell me how I can get out of this, because he saw these enormous legal problems coming his way. They were so bad in his mind that he was willing to kill himself. And so I kept on going back and suggesting to him, listen, Michael, if you have something truthful on Donald Trump, now is the time to cooperate. And he kept on saying over and over again, 10 to 20 times, I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything on Donald Trump. I even said to him, Michael, think about this. Isn't it easier to cooperate against Donald Trump if you have truthful information than it is to kill yourself? Well, the answer is obvious. That was his moment in time. If he had something truthful to say, I'm willing to cooperate. But he didn't take that. He kept on saying, I have nothing on Donald Trump. And then when we got into the discussion of the Stormy Daniels NDA, he said specifically, and I cross-examined him on this was my idea. It was his idea to take care of the NDA.
All right, so let me pause here. He's now talking about his discussions, obviously, with Michael Cohen, right? And we've talked here before about witness impeachment. And one of the ways that you do it is through a prior inconsistent statement. Okay, so now what you've got is you've got this guy. He's the current witness. Okay, he's on the stand. Actually, well, they've broken for the day, but I guess his testimony will resume tomorrow. He can offer information, prior inconsistent statements, he can tell the jury that Michael Cohen has said something completely different to him. So that's what this is all about. And by the way, there was talk about there being, well, you heard this gentleman say that the prosecutors were trying to say that there was a legal problem with his testimony to the grand jury, that it was hearsay. Well, first off, like he said, hearsay is admissible in grand juries. Hearsay is in the rules of evidence. You can't bring an out of court statement in to prove the truth of the matter asserted. It's a complicated, it takes weeks, if not months, or in some cases years, for people to understand hearsay rules and all the exceptions. But suffice it to say, it doesn't matter, because hearsay is admissible in a grand jury. And secondly, there's an exception to the hearsay rule called business records. Things that are made in the ordinary course of doing business can be admissible as business records, even if they contain something that would otherwise be hearsay. And thirdly, it's not hearsay in this trial if it's not offered for the truth of the matter asserted. It's offered to show that Michael Cohen uttered the words. You understand the difference? It's not being offered to prove that the words of Michael Cohen were true, because they seldom are, but it's offered to show that Michael Cohen uttered words that were different from the words uttered to the jury. Okay? All right, there's your evidence 101 for at least for the next 5 minutes.
Because he had been contacted by a lawyer for Stormy Daniels, who said she was going to claim that Donald Trump had sex with her. Cohen said, I didn't believe the allegation, but nevertheless, it would be embarrassing to Melania. That's Michael Cohen's words. He said, and so I decided to take care of this myself. Now, he took out a home equity loan for $130,000 and used that. And he did tell us that he got repaid later. We didn't get into the details of that because that was not what we were focused on at the moment. We were trying to figure out what was Michael Cohen going to be charged with by the Southern District of New York. And then, as you know, ultimately, he pled guilty to 8 counts, 7 of which had nothing to do with Donald Trump. And then after that, he attempted to cooperate by telling fibs to the U.S. Attorney's Office that Rudy Giuliani and I conspired basically to obstruct justice and tamper with the witness being Michael Cohen. With all these emails and text messages that I had, it was absolutely clear that there was no truth whatsoever to that. So the U.S. attorney said to Michael Cohen, in order for us to investigate this, you have to waive the attorney-client privilege. And that's what he did. And when they called me up and presented me with the waiver, I then gave them the documents they requested. I went down and I was interviewed for a couple of hours with 2 AUSAs and 2 FBI agents. At the end of that interview, everybody was laughing because I showed how ludicrous the accusation was. And they being the Southern District of New York, never used Michael Cohen again. They didn't indict Donald Trump for anything, and they never used Michael Cohen, and they didn't give him any credit for his cooperation. So
this is a good explainer of why the Southern District of New York, that's the federal Justice Department, that the office that would have jurisdiction over this if it were some kind of a crime. This is why, he's telling you why they didn't pick it up. And he's a former federal prosecutor himself. Nobody believed Michael Cohen. A rational, sane prosecutor does not build a felony in any kind of case, let alone a felony against a former president. You don't build that case on the foundation of a BS artist like Michael Cohen. You just don't do it. And the federal prosecutors, he's explaining why they didn't turn it down. It was for that very reason. All right.
That's a lesson that the Manhattan DA's office should have learned.
Exactly.
They haven't learned it yet.
One of the things I found so interesting about what you just said, amongst many, is that the grand jury didn't get to hear some of the things that you thought they should hear. And for all of us listening to you now, it's like, wow, the jury should probably hear this. And I wonder, have you been subpoenaed by the defense? Do you think you will be called to testify in New York at this trial?
I have not been subpoenaed. Whether I will be called to testify, it hasn't been decided yet.
When he says he hadn't been subpoenaed, that's code for, I don't need a subpoena. I will show up voluntarily. And I suspect that's what happened.
Probably depends a lot on what's going to happen today in court, and then what would happen on redirect by the district attorney's office. I mean, if I were in Todd Blanche's shoes, that's the analysis I would make. But,
if you were in Todd Blanche's shoes, would you call you to testify?
Yes, because I'm a reliable person.
Go back to this meeting with Cohen, 2016. It's late October, early November. The election hasn't even happened yet. No. It's April. It's April. April of what year?
2018.
Okay, gotcha. So can you explain how Cohen could procure the NDA on his own, right? He said his wife ran the house. He went out and got a home equity loan, okay? They're living in some pretty fat apartments on Park Avenue, right? So they've got the money on the home equity loan if they want it. How does he sign it?
Sure.
Without his wife knowing, which he has testified to? And why does he do it then? And is it solely for the purpose that he thought Donald Trump would give him a good job in the administration if he were to win?
Well, that's multiple questions there. Number one, he got a HELOC loan, as he referred to it, for the $130,000. The reason he did it that way was he told us, and I haven't seen the paperwork, but he told us that he didn't want Melania to know, and he didn't want his own wife to know, because he said that his wife handles the family finances, and if he took any money out of any of his accounts, she'd know it right away. And according to him, she'd ask him 100 questions that he didn't want to answer. That's his statement. Now, I haven't seen the paperwork for this HELOC loan, so I don't know whether he represented to the bank. Chances are that...
Well, he's been convicted of lying to banks. We don't know what he said to the bank, but see, this is important because it's one of the issues in the case. And I don't agree that it really should be an issue, but apparently one of the issues that has come up is what was the purpose of this NDA? Was it to sway the election? Of course, by the time all this took place, it was after the election, right? I think when the check was cut that they say was going back to Cohen to repay him for this loan or whatever, that was in 2017. It was after the election. But there's been some testimony, some issues about what all this was for. And here you have Cohen saying way back then that this was about Melania.
He didn't tell the truth on that application. He didn't say this is going to be money to take care of a non-disclosure agreement. But I don't know that. I'm just guessing.
Okay.
Now, what was your other question?
Guessing correctly.
I had a few. Can I ask you another one?
Yes, you did.
Why has Alan Weisselberg not been a witness in this case to date? He's the longtime accountant, ran the Trump organization for...
Yeah, he ran the Trump organization, I guess CFO or whatever. He's sitting in Rikers Island right now. Bragg prosecuted him and he got 6 months.
More than 40 years.
Well, I think if you listen to Andy McCarthy, who you just had on, he gave a very good analysis, and that is we are presuming that Alan Weisselberg does not have any information that would be helpful to the district attorney.
Bingo.
Because if they thought he had helpful information, they would immunize him and bring him from Rikers Island over to the courthouse and have him testify. The fact that they haven't done that leads one to reasonably conclude that maybe Weisselberg doesn't have information that helps him. Rather, it helps Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. I think Andy McCarthy is 100% correct on that.
I'll hit you with a couple questions if you don't mind. Here's just one. Like, if Cohen did all of this on his own, but the jury sees that Donald Trump signed the checks, does that kind of evidence go to the prosecution's point?
No, I don't think so. I mean, listen, this is a prosecution for a false statement in a business record. Frankly, none of this tawdry stuff should have been allowed in. It's reversible error. If this case results in a conviction, it will definitely get reversed, but after the election, probably. And that's what they want.
Okay.
The fact that Donald Trump signs the checks really doesn't mean anything. Do you know how many checks he probably sits there and signs? While he's president of the United States, he might be a little busy on something else.
Do you know Judge Merchan?
No, not at all.
All right.
Never met him.
But you have experience with New York juries, and what do you think about this particular jury and how they might be, thinking about this case as they get ready for jury instructions fairly soon?
Well, I mean, it's New York City, so I understand that 87% of the voters voted not for Donald Trump in the last election. So you have to assume that there is Trump derangement syndrome out there and that this jury will be reflective of that. So that means there are some people on this jury who will vote to convict Donald Trump, no matter what evidence is presented or not presented. All you need is one or two reasonable people to hold up or hang the jury. And I think ultimately, if I was guessing or betting on this, I'd bet that that's probably going to be the result.
All right, so let me pause him for a second because he said he'd never met Judge Merchan, right? But today, apparently, there were some fireworks in the courtroom between this witness, Bob Costello, former attorney for Michael Cohen, and Judge Merchan. So here's the way it's being reported. Judge reprimands Trump witnesses, clears the court, and asks, "Are you staring me down?" Judge Merchan has cleared the court amid a confrontation with witness Robert Costello, who is testifying on behalf of former President Donald Trump's defense. The back and forth began with Costello audibly and visibly responding with disapproval to Merchan sustaining multiple objections from the prosecution concerning his testimony about Michael Cohen. Quote, "I'm sorry," Merchan said to Costello after one reaction before clearing the court. "I want to discuss proper decorum in my courtroom." After the jury left, Merchan said, "You don't say strike it because I'm the one who can strike it," referring to striking testimony or something along those lines. Merchan told Costello not to respond, roll his eyes, or react in any way prior to his rulings. Prior to the jury returning to the court, Costello looked at Merchan. So the witness is looking at the judge, prompting the judge to say, "Are you staring me down?" Merchan then demanded that members of the press be cleared from the court. Members of the press cleared from the court. That's a no-no. You don't kick media out of courtrooms in America. It's a First Amendment violation. It's freedom of the press. They have a right to be there. Courtrooms are open as a matter of First Amendment law. The media has a First Amendment right to gather the news, and that's what's going on in this courtroom. You don't kick out the media. But he did. Did you see him kicking out the media when Stormy Daniels was talking about condoms? No. Did you see him sustaining multiple rapid fire objections from the defense, objecting to relevancy and all this other stuff when she was talking about Donald Trump in his underwear? No. Why is this judge so one-sided with his thumb clearly on the scale of the prosecutor? This is a credible witness. This is a lawyer of 51 years, a member of the bar, a respected member, and he is there offering what he knows about the very essence of the true facts of this case. Unlike Stormy Daniels, and unlike David Pecker, and unlike all the people that testified about all the nonsense that have nothing to do with this case, where was Merchan then? Where was he chastising these people? He wasn't. He waits until the one witness that can literally blow Bragg's case out of the water comes into the courtroom, and he immediately gets on his case. Immediately. And rapid fire sustaining objections. And juries don't like that. They don't want to see prosecutors or anybody really just object. They know the man is there for a reason. Maybe they want to hear what he's got to say. So there's sometimes too much is too much when it comes to objecting, particularly if you're the prosecutor, because if you're the prosecutor, you're supposedly the good guys, and the jury, it looks like you're hiding something from them. What are you hiding? Anyway, the press were later allowed to return. How magnanimous of His Honor. You don't kick out the press. You don't kick out the press. It's Judge 101. The media's got a right to be there. The public's got a right to be there. You can't close out the eyes and the ears of the press. All right. Okay, so take a deep breath. Let's move on.
They may actually just get so disgusted and acquit him. But
yeah, so
it's hard to do that when 87% of the people vote for the other guy.
Yeah, I apologize about talking over you.
I'm sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
Point. It's okay. We're told right now that this sidebar continues. So it's been going on for 15 minutes. Maybe they're talking about you potentially as a witness. You're a friend of Rudy Giuliani, and that's how you came into this entire orbit. By way of New York and the Southern District, I'm assuming, based on your past and your resume. This is one of your emails to Michael Cohen. I'm assuming, this was April of 2018. We can put it on screen. Giuliani asked me to tell you that he knows how tough this is on you and your family, and he will make sure to tell the president. Giuliani said, thank you for opening this back channel of communication and asked me to keep in touch, end quote. Why was it necessary for you to be a back channel at that time?
It wasn't. And that phrase was not mine. That was a word that Rudy used. Probably an unfortunate term. There was nothing sneaky about this. I was representing Cohen. And by the way, that first meeting at the Regency, Michael Cohen lied to the jury already about that because he says that Rudy Giuliani and I basically were.
See that? Okay, let me just pause it here. All right, so here he's talking directly about he's aware of Cohen's test. This guy apparently you can't watch it on TV, you can't watch live streams, but they prepare transcripts every day. So he's read and is aware of what Michael Cohen has been saying to the jury. And here he's telling us that Cohen has lied to the jury and he knows it. And so this is, we talked about impeachment. And by the way, for those of you, we now have 2,300 people here watching live. So welcome. Thanks for coming. This is Bob Costello. This is an interview he gave at the end of the court week last week, which was on Thursday, to my friends over at Fox, America's Newsroom. And of course, we can't see him testify today. We've heard descriptions about his testimony. We know that it's been something that the prosecutors do not want to have happen, and apparently neither does the judge. But by showing this interview, I think we can get an idea of what kind of testimony the lawyers for Donald Trump are trying to get out of this man. He's got a lot to say. He knows a lot. He's got receipts. He's got records in the electronic and other email type records that basically prove everything that, or he says that prove everything he's saying. So this is the witness who the defense for Donald Trump thinks is going to be sort of the knockout blow. I went into this case thinking that the deck was heavily stacked against Donald Trump, and it is, and it was. I thought maybe we could have a couple of people that might hold out that are, look, we don't like the man, but we can still be fair, and so they'll hold out. Maybe we get a hung jury. But as time has gone on, and as Michael Cohen has been shown to be the bald-faced liar that he is, and he's contradicted himself. He said he told the jury he wants to see Trump in jail. He took credit for some part of the indictment. He admitted today that he stole money from Donald Trump, tens of thousands of dollars. Admitted that he stole money. This is the kind of bias, okay, that Alvin Bragg wants you to ignore if you're on the jury and nevertheless convict somebody of 36 felonies, which, by the way, were arguably the only misdemeanors and who had the statute of limitations run years ago. But nevertheless, we are in the kangaroo court of Juan Merchan, and the regular rules apparently don't apply. So it's no surprise that the Donald Trump defense team is leaving no stone unturned. They're calling this witness. It probably wasn't on their radar to do it just a week or two ago. But in light of his testimony before Congress and what we now publicly know, I think it would have been malpractice to not call this witness to tell the jury what he knows.
Conspiring even on that day. Rudy wasn't even representing Donald Trump until a couple of days later. And you will see that there is an email from me informing Michael Cohen, did you see the report in the newspaper that Rudy is now going to represent Trump? I said, that's good for you because I know Rudy and Rudy knows me. And the reason why that's good is because when you're talking to a lawyer representing somebody else, If you've known that lawyer for 40, 50 years and you know that the person is trustworthy, it makes things a lot easier.
Robert, how about
It's that
this?
simple.
You
What Cohen did, yeah, go ahead.
You said he told you,
go ahead, Bill.
what, 10 times, 12 times, I don't have anything on Donald Trump? Why would...
Right.
So his story is entirely different now. He's done a 180. So maybe this, maybe the jurors believe him today, and they would not believe something from 6 years ago, Robert.
The rest of the proof doesn't support Michael Cohen. And by the way, one thing that you're not reporting yet is that besides making that statement, I swear to God, I don't have anything on Donald Trump, he also said more times than that answer, guys, I want you to understand, I will do whatever the F I have to do. I will never spend a day in jail. And then he'd slam his hand.
Okay, we've talked about impeachment. We've talked in the ways that you can impeach a witness, bias, prior inconsistent statement, felony conviction. One thing that we haven't exactly talked about is motive to fabricate. If a witness has a motive to fabricate their testimony, you have a right to point that out. Okay, so if Michael Cohen makes a statement to this guy that two statements. First off, the first statement was, I don't have anything on Donald Trump. That was at the beginning of the video clip of this interview. And now we're hearing him say, Cohen is saying, I will do anything to get out of my legal troubles. Well, sometimes they say, snitches sing, right? But also they can compose. In other words, they make it up. They make things up so that they can use it to snitch on people in ways that aren't true. Okay. And that's what he's talking about here. And that's why this testimony is so damning. And that's why the prosecutors are objecting every time the man opens his mouth. And that's why Judge Merchan is throwing the media out of the courtroom, because they are deathly afraid of this man and what he has to say. Jennifer, thank you so much for that super chat. And thanks to all of you, by the way. Please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, do so. I'm approaching 30,000. That's my next goal. Help me get to 30,000. So tell all your friends, your neighbors, your countrymen, your whoever you can think of, tell them to subscribe to Inside the Law if they have an interest in this kind of content. You can support the show by following the links that are in the descriptions, because that helps us bring additional content like this and even better, more to come. All right, Jennifer, thank you very much for the super chat. All right, here we go.
On the conference room table. And what does that mean to you? That means this guy is saying, I will lie, cheat, steal, do whatever I have to do. I'm not going to jail. Well, he did go to jail. And who do you think he blames for that? Mm-hmm. And why do you think he names his most recent book, Revenge? I mean, quite frankly, he's using this to monetize himself, because this is the only way this guy can make money right now, selling books and T-shirts and trinkets and being the ultimate anti-Trumper. And because he was doing that on TV, and I saw that, I said, I can't sit by and let this guy tell the grand jury, tell the jurors now this false story, when he told us the opposite story at a moment when he was desperately seeking a way out and was willing to kill himself. And certainly cooperating with truthful information is a lot easier. But he didn't have any truthful information.
That leads me to a question I was thinking about asking you, because you've had time with Michael Cohen. I've not. And I'm wondering about how you think his state of mind is now, because, as you said, he was suicidal when he first met you. He did ultimately go to jail. He's now written a book called Revenge. He has said to the prosecution he does want Donald Trump, to be convicted. And he's getting some strange new respect from liberal media and commentators, even actresses and comedians on the left-wing perspective. And I wonder how he thinks about that. Is he somebody who responds to that kind of flattery, but also is it because that's the way that he can actually continue to make money to support his family?
The answer is both. He does respond to the flattery. He is looking to make money, and he has been making money. He's got a podcast. Apparently, it's called Mea Culpa, which is ironic because it's Latin that means through my fault. And it is through his fault that we're all here talking about this subject.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can't fault people for all the time, can we, for making money off streaming? Because some of us, this is part of how we support ourselves. But Michael Cohen, by the way, he's on TikTok, right? And he's probably going to be on TikTok tonight, if I had to guess. He admitted that he has a financial interest in this case. And presumably by that, he said he wants to sell his book, which is called Revenge, for God's sakes, Revenge Against Donald Trump. So he's making money off TikToking. He's making money off live streaming off this. He's got, I guess, no other options. But he did say, I think, in his testimony, he wants somebody to pick up and make a miniseries or a documentary about him, which, of course, he wants to sell. He wants to make money off of his involvement in this case. And so if he can get a conviction, then it makes him all that more marketable. Okay, that's what all of this is about. And so Robert Costello is the kind of witness that can bring all of it together. A lot of the stuff the jury has heard in other ways, but this witness knows all of the reasons why Cohen should not be believed. And he's unusual because he was the lawyer. He had attorney-client conversations with Michael Cohen that he's been released from that privilege. So now he can speak freely about all the things Cohen told him. So for those of you who maybe we're not here at the beginning of the stream, we're going through and we're explaining. This is Mr. Bob Costello. He's currently on the stand, so to speak, although they've broken. He'll be back tomorrow. He is the current witness that's giving testimony, and he's going to be the knockout blow that at least the defense hopes that he's going to be the knockout blow before the trial gets wrapped up.
Robert, the sidebar is over. Lasted almost 20 minutes. The judge apparently said, I apologize for all the whispering. The jury is now being brought into the courtroom, and so too is Michael Cohen. So we'll see what gets underway momentarily. Final question.
Okay.
If you think Michael Cohen was telling the truth in 2018, maybe he was lying 6 years ago. Maybe he's flipped again.
Of course, that's a possibility.
I was in the courtroom.
However,
I was in the courtroom the other day, and it was a well-rehearsed show between the prosecutor and Michael Cohen. It was Q&A. It was flip the page. He could almost anticipate the question, so he was very well rehearsed. But if you're saying he's lying now, who's to say he wasn't lying then, when you first came across him?
I'll tell you why I believe that what he told us in 2018 was the truth. Number one, as I said, he was suicidal. He was desperately looking for a way out. The way out was clear, and that was to cooperate against Donald Trump if he had truthful information. He didn't take that way out. All day long, he said, I don't have anything, but I will do whatever the F I have to do. I will never spend a day in jail. Here's the other thing. Donald Trump, when he went to Washington, D.C., when he was elected, he took the whole Trump inner circle to Washington, with one exception, Michael Cohen. They left him back in New York.
He's bitter.
Michael Cohen was very unhappy about that. As I testified yesterday, during one of my conversations with Michael Cohen, when I asked him, Michael, what did you think was going to happen if you did go to Washington, D.C.? He said, I thought I could be Attorney General of the United States, or at least Chief of Staff to the President. Now, as ludicrous as that sounds, I thought I was the only one that he had said that to, until I noticed that during cross-examination of, I think it was Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Cohen actually said that to him. Now, this is your adversary. You're negotiating with this guy for an NDA, and yet you're telling him how annoyed you are that Donald Trump didn't take you to Washington where you could be Attorney General or Chief of Staff. You don't think that's sitting on this guy's mind when he writes a book called Revenge? He went to jail and he's left alone in New York. I think that's his motivation now.
Robert Costello, we thank you so much for spending this time with us. It's very valuable and insightful. And
maybe we'll see you again.
Yeah, it sounds like we might. It's Todd Bland.
All right. So, yep, we saw him again today. Well, we didn't see him because we can't see what's going on in the courtroom where they're trying the former leader of the free world. Um, so, before I have to leave to go get ready, it's my 18th wedding anniversary today. So, before I have to leave to go get ready for dinner, I want to share a couple of we're going to talk some more about what happened, and then I'm going to talk to you about what I was doing over the weekend in Florida with Viva Fry and our friends Mark and Eric from America's Untold Stories. Here you go. Tom says he enjoyed meeting and speaking with me at the event last Saturday in Palm Beach. Well, Tom, you beat me to it. I'm gonna get to that in just a few minutes, but I want to finish up on this. And thank you for the super chat, by the way. I want to talk about some other things that happened in the case. So let me share the correct screen, and then before I finish, stick around. I want to talk to you about the recap of what we can expect in the Fani Willis disqualification appeal. So don't go away. Still got more topics to cover. All right. So let's. All right. Here we go. This is in a brief thread that I made based on some notes out of the courtroom. Let's see if I can make this larger. Well, before the end of the day, Trump attorney Blanche asks for an order of dismissal. Okay, we would call that in my state, we would call that a directed verdict of acquittal. You basically, the end of the state's case, in any event, before closing arguments, you ask the judge to toss the case out. You argue that there's no evidence to support the essential allegations. Now, we know the judge is going to deny it, but the motion to dismiss has to be made. It's perfunctory. It's mandatory, though. But he says that there's no evidence that the filings or the business records were false. That's accurate. There is actually no evidence that the filings. It's a business record fraud case, guys, and there's literally no evidence that the records were false. There's no dispute that Cohen was acting as personal attorney for Trump in 2017. In the middle, this was where I had tweeted the link to this live stream so that everybody would know to join us. Blanche says there is absolutely no false business filings. He continues that there is not evidence of connection with Trump. Blanche says that these records show that Cohen was first paid by the trust, then by Trump's personal account. So the idea that there would be any intent to defraud when the invoice is going from the Trump org for Trump to sign in the White House, there is not evidence that there was any idea or intent to mislead, hide, or falsify business records. That's the summary of his argument. Blanche says that if there was intent to defraud, there would be evidence of something entered in a false matter. In other words, it would have been booked in the book of business as some other kind of expense, but it wasn't. Blanche says that the quote other crimes that reportedly are being covered up are non-existent. He says there is no evidence that anyone was thinking about campaign finance charge. By the way, the Federal Elections FEC, Federal Election Commission, has said there was no campaign finance violation here. Nobody was thinking about campaign finance charge. A $35,000 retainer was established. Blanche says that prosecutors talked about conspiracy to influence the election, but there has to be, for it to be an illegal conspiracy, there's got to be a crime. A conspiracy is just an agreement, but a criminal conspiracy, there has to be a crime. And so Blanche, I think, correctly points out that prosecutors have failed to link that up. All right. What to make of all of this? We're going to see the rest of Costello's testimony. Okay. Costello is going to continue, I guess, to maybe butt heads with the judge. We're going to see something about the judge's true character, true color, true bias. We saw him kick out journalists out of the courtroom today, which is a big no-no. All right. You don't kick journalists out. You don't kick anybody out under ordinary, but you certainly don't kick out the media when you're having, when you're doing something that exposes your bias, so to speak. All right. And then we're going to finish up with Costello. We might hear briefly from an accounting type witness. Thank you, Tyler, and appreciate the anniversary wishes. Thank you very much. We might hear from an accounting type. Now the judge has said he may allow this accounting witness, but he's not going to let him go too far. This is an accounting fraud case. This is an accounting fraud case. Aren't these the kind of witnesses that you want to hear from? I mean, we're gonna have days and days of Stormy Daniels and testimony about condoms and Donald Trump in his underwear and how she felt the room spin and all this stuff. But in an accounting fraud case, we're going to limit very severely what an actual expert accountant can say. I mean, you can't make this up. This is Banana Republic, third world country show trial material. And I would say the same thing if it were, if Donald Trump, if Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, were even Joe Biden, if they were in the defense chair as defendants, I would be saying the same thing. We can't go after our political enemies in this way. It's just insanity. Our country, our legal system has lost its mind. If you don't have fundamental fairness, you don't have a system. This is absolutely Banana Republic, third world. I shouldn't even say that because it's disrespectful to the third world to say this is third world stuff because it's worse. This is the kind of stuff I would expect from, like, I don't know, back in for those of you who are old enough to remember the Soviet Union, this is like the stuff that you think gets people sent off to the gulags, right? You know, you go after your personal and political opponents with this kind of nonsense. All right. Yep. So Mary points out a forensic auditor. Merchant would panic. Merchant is panicking now. He's panicking now. That's why he's having words with Costello, because Costello knows that the star witness is a liar, that he's lied to the jury in this very trial, and he's doing everything he can to keep it's not just his thumb on the scale, he's standing on the scale in favor of the DA. You didn't see Merchant getting into this kind of discussion, if you will, heated with Stormy Daniels or all the other nonsense witnesses that didn't add anything to the equation. All right. So there was a good question over here. Let's see. I've thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for Gary for joining and becoming a new member. And thank you, Tom, as well. I'm going to get to Palm Beach and the Untold Stories event in just a minute, but this was a great question too. I had flagged a few moments back. Chat boss Megan is unable to be here today. I think she's traveling somewhere, so it's hard for me to keep an eye. I know there were a lot of good questions that were asked, and I will go back and watch this again once it processes, and it takes sometimes several hours. But once all the processing completes, I'll be able to go back in and see the live chat, and I will look and see what you guys were talking to each other about and what you were asking about. And of course, if you ask questions in the comments to the videos later, I can even respond to those. And so I enjoy that very much. It's one of the most satisfying things is hearing what people say, what they like, what they don't like. I'm okay if you don't like some of what we talk about or what I do. Let me know. It may or may not change how I do things going forward, but I like to see I like to see what people like, what they don't like, and constructive criticism. David asks, will Marchand, Bragg, and the other partisans corrupting the legal system for their own personal benefit ever face punishment? If not, why not? Well, answer is no, they won't. They have immunity. Once a grand jury returns an indictment, a prosecutor That's a legal determination of what we call probable cause for the commission of a crime, David. And so even though the prosecutor controls the grand jury, and even though the you know even though they do obviously have a bias, and even though they're not being a objective pursuer of justice, they have immunity. There's nothing that can be done. You can Google search this, and rarely when you find prosecutors like hiding evidence and literally planting evidence, things, when they go to something that's like that extreme, you might find them prosecuted for a misdemeanor here and there, or maybe facing disbarment, but very rarely do court officers like judges and prosecutors face any discipline or any consequences of any kind for this kind of stuff. So Tara is asking, why can't Brad Smith testify on campaign finance? And I don't know the answer to that. I will check my notes from folks that were in the courtroom. But I was getting ready towards the end of the day. There was some developments. Some of you in the chat might be better able to answer Tara's questions. I feel bad that it was a super chat and I don't know the answer to it, but I don't know. And I don't know that he can't. I know that they were saying that Smith is going to talk about, it wasn't Smith. There was going to be an accounting, but there was a campaign finance witness, Brad Smith, as I recall, who was going to be very limited in what he could say. The judge did not want him giving definitions, and didn't really want him giving opinions. But that would be, look, if you have somebody who's a campaign finance expert, I would want to hear what they have to say. Tara, I'm going to look into that to try to answer that question. I just don't know it off the top of my head, so I'd rather not guess. Probably someone in the chat might know. But thank you very much for the super chat. All right. I see you guys are still fast and furious, talking with and chatting in the chat. I love to see it. Go ahead and hit that like button and please subscribe. I want to share with you something from this past weekend. It was, let me make sure I bring the right. I'm not as good as Hunley and some of these are with all of this. I want to make sure I show you the correct. Here we go. All right. So this is Viva was the guest of honor. I was just crashing the place, but Eric and Mark from America's Untold Stories hosted a meetup in West Palm, and Viva was the guest of honor. And I did not know that he was as short as he is. And I say this, but I'm not saying anything that I wouldn't say. For all I know, he's in the stream right now, but he knows that he's a little bit smaller than maybe average. He's a little smaller than I am. But look, he's such a magnanimous guy. His tweet was another person who's wildly taller than me. He asked me if I'm 6'2". I'm actually more like 5'11". I may be 5'10" and a half now. We shrink as we get older. But in any event, so I wound up, I thought about taking and hiding his phone. This is the back of Viva Fry's phone. He's got the Serenity Prayer. I thought about taking it and holding it for ransom or maybe auctioning it off on eBay, but I decided not to. He's been too good of a friend. I couldn't do that to him. But we had a lot of fun. And for those of you who missed it, go check out Eric Hunley's, some of his channels. I know that he did a grill stream on locals while we were there. We had a lot of fun playing with that. And anyway, it was a big time. And I really, for one, enjoyed being down there and hanging out with some of those folks in person. All right, Fani Willis update. She's still the prosecutor on the Trump case as we speak right now on May the 20th of 2024. Should not have to even hesitate, that being today being my 18th wedding anniversary. I'm about to have to leave to go to dinner, but I want to tell you about Fani Willis. So she's got She's got the motion pending to disqualify. Judge McAfee said, no, you can't, we're not going to disqualify her, but we will let you appeal my order. So all of the parties have now filed their notice of appeal. The case is squarely before the Georgia Court of Appeals. I expect briefing. The lawyers will present their written arguments for the various defendants who are seeking to have her removed. We'll see those first, followed by the briefs of the state. I know you want to see Fani's briefs, but you're going to have to wait. Fani's briefs won't come until after you see the briefs of the defendants. All right. We'll go through all those. We'll do a few live streams. I'm sure we'll go through the legalese and separate what we like, what we don't like, what's a good argument, what's a bad argument, and we'll try to do our best to explain it. That's what we do here inside the law. Then we're going to have later in the summer, my best guess is August timeframe, there will be oral argument that should be live streamed at the Georgia Court of Appeals. And then a couple of months later, roughly, and it might even be next year, but I'm going to say a couple of months, roughly, we will get the opinion of the 3-judge panel of the Georgia Court of Appeals. My prediction is that she gets tossed. Judge McAfee found in his order that she had committed forensic misconduct for talking negatively about the defendants, calling them racists and liars and things like that when she's in the well of the church, which, by the way, is in the middle of Fulton County, which is where the jury comes from, and that she also has the appearance of a conflict or an actual conflict of interest related to the payments by Nathan that she made from the county to Nathan Wade using a no-bid contract, and also where she received some of the benefit of those proceeds back in the form of romantic getaways with each other, cruises and Napa. Napa's wonderful, by the way. I would suggest going if you've never been, but if you're going to go, well, just don't do it the way they did. All right. So we've got that coming up. And so I think we're going to have a ruling, and I think she's going to be tossed from the case. If she's not, then if she's not ruled off the case, then the defendants get to appeal again to the Georgia Supreme Court. So fast forward to next year when this issue finally is resolved. If Donald Trump is in the White House, who do you think's going to, how are they going to get him into court if he's the president? How is he going, if he's the president and the indictment is still alive, how are you going to prosecute him? And so I don't know the answers. I'm just floating this out there so y'all can think about it and answer in the comments if you want. You tell me. But look, if he's president, there's no way that Judge McAfee or any other judge is going to be able to get a sitting president to sit for a criminal trial. It's just not going to happen. And by the way, Judge McAfee's election, I guess it's tomorrow. Tomorrow's the election. So we'll know if Judge McAfee is going to be defeated by this guy right here, Robert Patillo, handpicked by Fani Willis to run against McAfee. And he obviously hates the defendant in this case, one of them anyway. This was some of his social media before he was a candidate. And so if he wins the election, he takes over this case, but he's also subject to being tossed from the case for bias against one of the accused. So we just there's too many variables to trying to predict everything. We don't know, but we'll know soon enough whether or not Judge McAfee is going to stay on the case. He'll at least stay on the case until the end of the year. His term would be over December 31st at midnight. So the new judge, if there is a new judge, would take over then. All right. Somebody's asking, I don't know, Mary, if you're asking, you said McAfee guest on his show. I don't know what you mean by that. If maybe I could get McAfee to come here inside the law. Maybe after the election, he'd be willing to do that. There's an idea. Maybe we'll try to see if we can make that happen. All right. Look, keep it right here, folks. Keep follow me on social media. I'm very active on X, also a little bit on Instagram, but I will keep you posted. I also go into the community section of YouTube, and I make some announcements there. So I will do my best to keep you posted. And don't forget.
There's nothing more powerful than the odor of mendacity.
All right. We'll see you back here next time inside the law. Thanks so much for being here.